Welcome to another episode of Cyber from the Front Lines. Today, we are going to have a chat with Mike Mitchell. Mike is the Vice President of Threat Hunt Intelligence at Intel 471 and also formerly co-founder of Cyborg. Welcome to the pod, Mike. How are you?
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's I'm really excited about this conversation today.
Absolutely, same. Likewise. So I always start with trying to understand a bit about the guests that come on the pod. So it'd be
Yeah.
nice to uh, learn a bit about yourself and how
Yeah,
you come into this journey of threat hunting.
right. Yeah. So my journey into threat hunting was a little bit of a roundabout way, right? I didn't get started into cyber until about 10 or 12 years ago. Previous to that, I was a minor league baseball player, major league baseball player for about 6 years. Uh,
Awesome.
yeah, after college, but always had a passion for computers, right? And so a year before before my kind of career ended on the baseball side, I started taking grad school classes for cybersecurity.
Mhm.
I landed my first job at a managed service provider up in the DC area that focused in on threat hunting for organizations.
Right.
And so we were doing it at a time where MSPs were brand new to the space, kind of, right? But we were doing a little bit more of advanced work. And we saw some issues with scaling, right? Understanding a lot of different environments,
Right.
being able to have the those environments uh, in a way that we were able to effectively threat hunt. And so that company got sold to Raytheon. I stayed on for about a year, moved over to a SOAR company called Swimlane. I was there for 3 years as they were getting started up as a sales engineer, director of sales engineering, and then had the opportunity to start Cyborg. So we got connected back to a lot of the same group and crew that was at that first company I was at, and we decided to set out to really solve that threat hunting problem from a scale perspective and give organizations a way that they could augment their capabilities with hunting content without having to do a lot of the hard work of building the content, testing, validating, researching, and really give them a place that they could jump off and start hunting a lot quicker and effective.
Awesome. Uh, yeah, I remember coming across Cyborg when I was at a conference at SciSac. I think it was a couple of summers, springs back at Orlando when Scott gave a pitch on Cyborg. So that was my first uh, understanding on Cyborg and how it worked. Pretty nice platform.
Yep. Thank you. Yeah, and I think from that point, I know we've stayed in touch, over a number of different events, and
Yeah,
it's always great to meet like-minded individuals in the space. So again, really excited about this.
yeah, same, absolutely. And uh, I, I that it's really good that you had this. You played baseball. I I haven't played baseball, but my game was similar in the sense I don't know if you have heard about the game called cricket. It's more
Oh,
like
yeah, I've watched a number. Is it matches or games?
matches. The
Matches. I've watched a number of different matches, especially when I was overseas.
right.
Fascinating game. I always had an itch to try it because it's
Yeah.
same
It's
concept where
similar
you're hitting
to
a ball with a bat, right?
it's similar to baseball. Some differences here and there, but yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah. Cool. All right. Let's just dive right into like hunting in the sense.
great.
Why do you think that threat hunting has become so essential when it comes to strategizing within cyber defense, cybersecurity?
Right. I think, again, back when I started my cybersecurity journey, we always talked about advanced persistent threats.
Right.
That was a big deal where people were in your network and they stayed for a long time. And they wanted to kind of set their roots before they actually did anything damaging. Um, and as I came up in the space, things like indicators of compromise were gold, right? It's those intelligence feeds, the domains, IPs, URLs, those ways that we can immediately detect those threats. But just like the industry matures, those threats are maturing, right? And so they're now using behaviors and advanced techniques and tactics that skirt the traditional security measures,
Mhm.
that are the best of breed security tools out there. They're finding methodologies and ways to get around that, so they can again persist longer, gather information, cause damage. And so threat hunting, again, is that approach of actively looking for those advanced behaviors in TTPs in an environment that you're not just sitting back and reacting, you're being proactive about that approach. So I think that's why it's really essential, and it has been for a long time, but I think now we're just maturing into these programs that organizations have the ability to do that.
Nice. And yeah, like you said, it improves the overall security posture,
Right.
cyber detection, and other facets of cybersecurity as well, which is kind of nice.
Yep.
Um, so, in terms of organizations that are just getting into and understanding threat hunting,
Mhm.
what would be your advice to them? Where should they start building their threat hunting capabilities?
Yeah, I think it starts really early in the process of forming a SOC, right? One of the biggest things that I think organizations can do for themselves is they need to understand their risk. They need to understand where to prioritize their efforts.
Mhm.
And they need to understand a lot about their organization. So, what are our crown jewels? What threat actors might attack us? What are those kind of high priority risks that we have? And then kind of build around that, right? So having that informed intelligence that you can gather and contextualize and summarize, that gives you a really great foundation to then go operationalize that data, go hunt for that data. So it really starts at kind of the ground level of, again, understanding the risk, the intelligence, and then having a place that you can go hunt, right? You need to understand visibility, the logging infrastructure, making sure you have the data to be successful to hunt. So I think organizations that are maybe a little less mature on the hunting side, there's a lot that they can do to get to the maturity level. And even mature organizations still have to fight that battle, right? It's an ongoing battle of the visibility, the logging, the risk,
Right.
prioritization. So it really starts at that ground level, though.
Yeah, and just as a follow-up to that, since we know like hunting is intelligence driven, where do you think it should fit in? Should it fit under the CTI umbrella, or is it,
Yeah.
say, for example, in a cyber fusion center, is it can it be on its own?
Mhm.
So take on it.
Ooh, that's an interesting question. I've seen every iteration of this. I think the key through line there, though, is that there needs to be great communication between the teams. So whether or not it's in the CTI organization or whether it's on its own, those business groups and business units need to have a really strong communication. So I think the most effective organizations that I've seen, there is their own threat hunting unit, but it's kind of attached to the CTI team. It's attached to the SOC team. There is a really great communication line to even engineering, right? Because if I don't have visibility for something and I need something done immediately, I need to have a really great relationship with the engineering team because they own the logging, they own the infrastructure. But I think it does potentially start out of the CTI organization, the SOC, and then spins off into its own group as you start maturing.
Understood. Yeah, I think that's a very good point. It's all about communications, and at the end of the day.
Right. Yep.
So, moving a bit further, how what are the biggest challenges that you see security teams face when they start on this journey of threat hunting? How do they overcome that? And
Yeah, I think there's a couple of different things here. I mentioned the technical aspects, and we can start with that, right? It's again understanding your risk, how to prioritize the hunt. It's making sure that your infrastructure and the data is in a place that allows you to hunt effectively.
Mhm.
So again, the logging, the visibility, that's really important. Being able to emulate those threats so you have a way to validate those hunts in their infrastructure, right? So that's on the technical side. Those are things that again are ongoing, and they're going to be things that need to be iterative as you're building up the program. The really interesting one comes in from a place of organizational buy-in. So you need your SOC manager, you need your CISO and your CTO, everybody at the top level to really value what hunting is bringing to the table, or else those hunt teams don't have the ability to effectively communicate the work that they're doing. right?
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of organizations just care about the findings. So, are you hunting and did you find bad? That's almost rarely the case. If your hunt team's finding bad every time you hunt, you have other problems, right? But that hunt team might be finding outcomes around, hey, there's a gap in visibility, or there's some security posture and policies that need to be updated. And so those are super effective outcomes from the hunt team, and that's really unique to that organization because they're in the data all day long,
Right.
where your CTI team is probably not giving you the insight. Your analysts may be, but they're always inundated with alerts and all the other work that they're doing. So, there's the technical and then there's the kind of the organizational side. So I think both of those I've seen been challenges today.
Yeah. I think you hit the nail on its head. That's one of the challenges I've seen as well. How do you showcase the value coming in from threat hunting and what
Right.
kind of metrics? How do you show that it's effective in doing what it's supposed to do?
Yeah, because it doesn't fit the traditional
Yeah.
how many alerts have you triaged, right? It's not a big quantitative metric. It's a
Yeah.
little bit more qualitative. There's a little bit more kind of um, understanding of those outcomes and how to translate that's needed.
Mhm.
That might not be necessarily widely communicated in kind of cybersecurity today.
Yeah, that's true. So we talked a little bit about the communications and how threat hunting interacts with the SOC, the other
Mhm.
teams. What do you think? How can threat hunters effectively collaborate with folks from the incident response team, or say, for example, the purple team
Right.
and
Yeah.
CDR?
So, how can they communicate with those teams, like the effective methods? Yeah, and I would say one, be involved in a lot of their operations, right? So again, you have these siloed groups. Typically, from what I've seen, the response team is, they're the hot shots, right? They know how to reverse malware, like they're
Right.
that gold standard of teams in an organization. But there's a lot of value in bringing in threat hunting as you're going through an incident response because if you have an incident, you have an alert that's triggered, you're going through the IR process, looking at hosts, really kind of broadening your search. That's a great opportunity for a threat hunter to come in and do a retroactive threat hunt based on a TTP or behavior or known observed, behaviors against an actor or a threat. So I would love to see that team get attached during the IR process because there's a lot of value there. Same thing with the purple team, red teaming engagements, right? Um, from my experience, the red team typically always wins that battle because they're the ones that are giving carte blanche, just go attack everything, right? It's rare that you arm the blue team with information to go protect yourselves, right? They're typically just waiting on the alerts to fire.
Right.
But imagine bringing in the threat hunting team as the red team is doing that engagement, and now you have a threat hunt going on at the same time. That's going to prove a lot of value.
Yeah.
And again, bringing those two groups together, having them interact is only going to form that tighter bond. So then it's really easy to reach across the aisle and be like, hey, I need this thing from this group. Yeah, let's do it, right? Like it just kind of, enhances their ability to communicate.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
So, in terms of, and I think we talked a bit about it, in terms of measuring the effectiveness of your threat hunt program, would what would you suggest would be the criteria folks should look into for measuring that?
Oh, yeah, this is a tough one too, right? Because we talk about there's not a really good there's some methodologies, there's some frameworks like Tahiti, there's some really good documentation out there. I,
Mhm.
I think starting from let's, defining those outcomes, right? So how do we talk about the effectiveness of our program? I would say it's about the findings, right? So the four kind of categories we talk about are the findings, the visibility gaps, the security posture or policy gaps, being able to create a detection off of a hunt is really important because then you can automate, you can set up scheduling, you can turn it into alert, and that passes that information off to a different team. So again, bolstering that communication. No findings, which is great. That's a good outcome, right? That's an effective outcome. And so I think by defining those,
Mm.
and defining which groups those are associated with, you now can kind of draw upon that effectiveness of the threat hunting program. And then again, it's going to be different for each organization, but I think those are kind of the base groundwork of the outcome from a threat hunt.
So when you say visibility gap, is it more like the gap in collections, the data sources? Uh,
Yes, yeah, exactly, right. It's let's say we've actually had this example in the past where a major EDR, XDR platform in the space today.
mhm,
Um, they can't monitor everything, right? So this one particular threat was using a very specific method to manipulate registry keys.
mm,
And so by running this threat hunt, this organization saw that there was a gap in visibility of seeing when that was triggered using emulation validation, running hunt, verifying the things on the host. And so they were able to communicate with that product to say, hey, we need this in order to be effective. And of course, that product was like, yeah, we can turn on that visibility. But that's what we're talking about from a visibility gap perspective. Are we collecting the logs that we need to collect to be successful?
yeah, yeah, that definitely would be one of the outcomes that is definitely a value add because that kind of ties into detection engineering as well, right? And
Right, exactly. Yep. And then that's where that outcome comes from. If you can, if you have a hunt, you can start to constrict that hunt to be organizational specific.
mhm,
Uh, and so if you put those exclusions in place, you now have an amazing detection off of maybe a wider, not as in depth of a hunt,
mhm,
but now you can start to build a detection and pass it off to teams and maybe schedule that. So it's unique to your environment.
yeah, agreed. Nice. That's a good one.
Yeah.
So in terms of how you see this function evolving in the future, what do you think the future holds for threat hunting?
I'm really excited about just the maturity we've seen over the past, 4 years. So starting Cyborg in 2019, the first 2 years was educational, right? We were talking to a lot of organizations that did not have a threat hunting program. They understood what it was and they were trying to build into it. And so over the past 2 years, we're seeing organizations now have threat hunters, now have an organization. One of the coolest indications was we always use LinkedIn as a measure of where hiring was. So again, back in 2019 and 20, even 21, the number of threat hunting recs open were in the hundreds, and now it's in the upper thousands,
Oh,
right? So it's really cool to see that shift as well. And so I think it's just about maturing the industry. The same place that threat intelligence was about 15 years ago,
yeah,
and where it is today is about the same path I see threat hunting going. So it's been really exciting to see organizations mature over time.
nice. And I also feel like as this function gets involved, a maturity model would be a nice add-on.
That's right. That's right. It's about, I think people are trying to build their own methodologies today and they're using some pre-existing frameworks, but again, that maturity model it'll be that blueprint for success. And
Yeah,
I think we're at the space now to I think that's a really good opportunity to help, you know, less mature small organizations get there.
great, great. So, as a final question, we talk a lot about automation, AI. How do you think that is going to change the role of threat hunters? Is it going to take over part of it, uh, or a majority of the
Yeah.
analysis?
Yeah, the AI question, right? It's been interesting. We hear it a lot. AI has always been at the forefront of cybersecurity. I mean, if you were at Black Hat this past year, the innovation section, every company was doing something with AI, right? Um, I struggle with that because cybersecurity, there's already a people problem in our space today. 4 million job recs open. Um, Cybersecurity is, a human-driven effort, right? No tool out there today is going to solve that problem. And so, it requires human intuition, right, and logic to draw some of these conclusions. Now, it can be assisted using AI and ML, especially for anomaly-based unstructured hunts. But I still think there needs to be a human in the loop. AI can be a tool for success, but it's not going to take over what humans can do in the space today.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's a valid point, especially the analysis part of it. Maybe uh, the building the library could be something that automation can help with, but the actual analysis is still human driven.
Right, exactly. And ML has been around for years and years, right? So anomaly detection,
Yeah,
uh, advanced statistics, that kind of stuff is super helpful to a hunter, but that's not going to solve the problem, right? That's not going to be the end all and be all. So, um, yeah, I think it's just a tool, and I think that's the way it's going to be for a long time.
nice. That's good. Good to know.
Yeah, yeah, no kidding. We want to keep our jobs, right?
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you so much, Mike, for spending some time sharing your thoughts on pet hunting.
Absolutely.
Uh,
Yeah,
on,
looking forward to maybe joining again in the future. Love the conversation.
absolutely,
Yep.
absolutely.
All right. Thank you.